Last hour, we told you about a Mexican girl who was lured to the United States and then forced into prostitution. Well, sadly, her story isn't all that unusual. CNN senior Latin American affairs editor Rafael Romo explains.
His name is Amador Cortez Mesa. The 36-year-old Mexican national is charged with involvement in a prostitution ring based in the Atlanta area that victimized women and girls smuggled from Mexico, some as young as 14.
They were brought in with romantic promises, with job promises, young girls from a certain state of Mexico, brought up, smuggled in, immediately forced into prostitution.
Immigration and Customs Enforcement Special Agent Brock Nicholson says 4 members of the same family were involved in the prostitution ring. 27-year-old Otto Jaime Larios Perez, who's admitted one count of providing false information, drove victims to several secret locations in the Atlanta area, forcing them to see multiple clients per day. They were kept locked up in several houses.
The houses had bars on the windows, locks on the outside of the door. We find 11 additional victims ranging in age from 14 to 28. All confirmed victims, all have been trafficked for the purpose of prostitution.
This case offers a glimpse into how these rings operate.
There's a lot of word of mouth, and a lot of the word of mouth actually comes with these little business cards that often have something very innocuous on them. That you only would know that it's a business card for a prostitution ring if somebody had whispered it to you.
As a former prosecutor, Luis C. de Baca says the level of cruelty of these prostitution rings is hard to imagine.
We have situations in the United States, cases that I've worked on when I was with the Justice Department, involving women who had to service up to 50 customers a day. Just a crushing amount of what in effect is a daily set of rapes.
We found a Mexican woman who was only 15 years old when she became a victim. Her boyfriend in Mexico promised a good life in the United States and smuggled her through the border. Once here, she was forced into prostitution. She agreed to talk to us on the condition that we protect her identity.
El primer día fueron 20, después 25, y así fue subiendo. Llegué a trabajar hasta 60 personas en un solo día.
Claudia, not her real name, describes to us a world of abuse and beatings, drugs, forced sex, and sleepless nights with strangers.
Y había jóvenes de mi misma edad que no aguantaban y las obligaban a consumir droga, cocaína, marihuana para que ellas trabajaran más, porque nosotras éramos las niñas que teníamos menos edad, o sea, como 15, 16, 18, llegaban mucha gente a buscar niñas de esa edad. Entonces nosotras trabajábamos mucho.
Maya Hasek is a social worker who works with law enforcement agencies to rescue victims of human trafficking who come from all over the world.
It must be really difficult for you to see the situation in which some of these victims come to you.
It's very difficult to see them in these situations, specifically sexual exploitation, and more so seeing minors go through this and knowing that their lives are never going to be the same, that they're going to be scarred forever.
What is the greatest challenge that you guys face when you're trying to help a victim in this situation?
The greatest challenge that we have is getting the victim to actually admit that they are a victim. They have been brainwashed by the traffickers for so long and told that the trafficker is the only person that they can trust.
And back to the suspects in the Atlanta case, Amador Cortez Mesa and the others accused of human trafficking have pled not guilty. Their trial is due to begin in November. Rafael Romo, CNN, Atlanta.
We're telling you about all these stories and occurrences because September is Human Trafficking Month, and this is a time to make you even more aware than you may have already been. So despite worldwide programs fighting this exploitation, too many women and youngsters still fall victim. According to the UN Global Compact.org, an estimated 2.5 million people are forced into forced labor, including sexual exploitation at any given time as a result of trafficking. And 161 countries are reported to be affected by human trafficking by either being a source, transit country, or final destination. An estimated 1.2 million children are trafficked each year. Most of the trafficking victims are between the ages of 18 and 24. Nancy Rivard is founder of Airline Ambassadors and works directly with Innocence at Risk, an organization dedicated to raising awareness about human trafficking. Good to see you.
Nice to be here.
Well, give me an idea what Airline Ambassadors International does and how you believe you're able to help identify and help save a lot of young children in particular.
Well, right. I started at this humanitarian organization in 1996, and we began as flight attendants using our past privileges to help children. And we've expanded to doctors and builders, engineers, retirees, and students.
So let me stop you there. So what is it that you saw as a flight attendant when you were traveling? You know, what is it that provoked you to say, you know what, I can use this privilege that I have as a flight attendant to help identify young people around the world and, you know, kind of be their angel and help them?
Well, I'll tell you the story. First of all, I've been living in Haiti since January, where we were successful in leveraging 17 airplanes and 3 million pounds of aid, and I've seen a lot going on there. But to go back to the trafficking story, back last summer, I was on our humanitarian mission in Cambodia. We have humanitarian missions every month. And our team found a little girl that was living with no clothes, no hair, and we learned later, no name. She was living like an animal on the dirt underneath a house where she'd been abandoned by her mother, who had worked in the karaoke bars nearby. The neighbors told us that the mother hoped somebody would take her. And so we did, and we got her into a safe house. And then I went on to Thailand, and I saw so many of the young girls that had been basically sold into slavery by their families and were working in the night markets of Thailand that's so famous. Well, I went back and I read in our union newsletter about a group called Innocence at Risk, and they were spearheading a flight attendant initiative to train flight attendants in this issue. And I called Deborah Sigmund, the founder of Innocence at Risk, and invited her on my next Airline Ambassador mission. The interesting part was that when we left our small humanitarian team, we were aware of the issue.
So are you working with, do you end up having to work with the U.S. State Department as well? Because you are intervening in various countries, and you're identifying what you believe to be a troubled child, either removing them from that setting or finding some other safe place. And, you know, I imagine that there are lots of layers that have to be checked or gone through, especially with the State Department, in order to do this, to use this privilege as you know, that you have as a flight attendant and through your own organization.
Well, let me just say how it started. On all three airlines that our team left on, JetBlue, Delta, and US Air, there was a trafficking incident that looked suspicious, and we asked the flight attendants in each airline to take action. They didn't know how. Well, we had these bracelets on from Innocence at Risk that give the human trafficking hotline number, and we said, have the pilots call this number. So what happens was ICE, Immigration's Customs Enforcement, was informed. So when the passengers got off the airplane and tried to go through customs, they were questioned. And in every case, we were correct. So I went to Congressman Chris Smith, who authored the legislation on trafficking, and asked him to give a congressional briefing to airline partners, and that we did in July.
So then what's your recommendation? How might people be able to identify when it's not so obvious that a child or a woman or someone is in trouble and is in just dire need of some sort of intervention?
Well, this is the interesting thing, is that 800,000 people, according to our numbers, are trafficked across international borders every day. And they're not hidden in a dark room somewhere. They are transported on airplanes, on buses, on trains. And some of the things we can look for is just remain observant, number one. Notice children and who they're traveling with. Does that look like they're their parents? Are they under the control of someone else? Are they wearing clothes that aren't appropriate for the place that they're traveling to? Notice if they appear drugged or alert.
And then what do you do?
Ravenously hungry.
But then what do you do?
Well, then, if you feel that if your instincts tell you that something's wrong, or it might be two girls traveling alone that say they're going to a modeling job. They got a great new job, no experience required, and they're not exactly sure who's meeting them. That's another red flag. What we ask people to do is to tell the pilots and have the pilots call the international authorities. They really don't have to do much more. Let's say, hey, I hope we're wrong, but if we're right, we may be saving a life right here. And every year, airlines give emergency procedure training to flight attendants and pilots.
Okay.
And so this is an easy way for an airline to support the international effort and to train their flight attendants that can become eyes and ears for international security.
Well, Nancy Rivard, the organization that you founded, Airline Ambassadors International, thanks so much for your time coming to us from New York today.
Yeah, we're very happy. We just completed 2 safe houses for UNICEF as well, which we're building and developing airport training all over in Haiti and Dominican Republic. Well, it's great to be here.
Oh, thanks so much. And I know you're doing a lot of great work there in Haiti and the Dominican. I know people are very appreciative of your generosity, of your time and resources.
Well, and the main thing is that we support not only awareness of the trafficking number, but the support to international aid organizations like Airline Ambassadors that are strengthening families.
Yeah.
We're offered children every day in Haiti to take them. And actually, by creating jobs, creating health and education and welfare for these children like we are, we can create a situation where not so many children are vulnerable, like little Som Nang, and more of them have a future.
All right. Nancy Rivard, thanks so much. Appreciate it.